Ladies, gentlemen, and patrons of the arts, this is Spoilerin time, where we take some of the shows we've been watching and we talk about them without worrying about spoilerin. So we're going to start off with Cosmos with Neil Tyson because, first of all, it's all facts. You can look them up. It's not really spoilery, frankly. But we have lots of opinions about what we saw and what happened, and maybe some people don't want to know anything about it until they actually get a chance to watch the episode. And then we have Eck, who was on the show with us from HockeyBuzz.com. He's going to talk about Cosmos with us. And then Brian and I are going to talk about the first 4 episodes of True Detective at the end of this episode.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started. First of all, when I watch Cosmos, number one, and there was a poetry to the fact that I watched it live over the air, uncompressed on my Leaf HD TV, 1080i, whatever. It was amazing because Justin was upstairs finishing up the Weird Things podcast. My voice was so trashed yesterday, I couldn't even do Weird Things. So he comes downstairs and it's just getting started. And Justin, who does not know the method by which I'm watching it, is visually starstruck by how gorgeous the presentation looks, and he immediately thought it was well, those are great graphics, or this is good presentation, or whatever. And I had to explain well, that and the fact that it's uncompressed over the air, amazing 1080p. How did you guys watch it?
I watched it online on my laptop from Fox.com, and it was still visually stunning. And I don't know, it can't have been as good as what you would see over the air, but I would say it was better than what I would have seen from DirecTV.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched it we have a big 200-inch projector, and it was phenomenal. It was just like you said, I did the over-the-air thing too. It was incredible. And what was funny is I remember watching the original Cosmos on a black and white TV in my old house as a kid.
Oh,
so that
gosh,
was just so interesting, different.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, visually, I think we all agree it's extraordinary animation and so on. I think we're all thrilled to see Neil deGrasse Tyson, an advocate for science, and I don't know, basically the heir to the mantle of Carl Sagan. We're all thrilled to see that. What did you think of the show itself? How close did it match to your expectations and hopes and dreams? Tom?
I was going to let Eck go because he just told the touching story of watching it on a freaking black and white TV.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll add another touching story if I may.
Yeah.
We watch my kids fall asleep to Mythbusters every night. That's what we put on the TV. Our kids love Mythbusters. We saw Mythbusters live. We watch Smarter every day, which is an incredible YouTube podcast. We watch that. But I've tried many times to get them into space type things like this, and there's lots of them out there. There have been plenty of them that have been made, and they've all freaked them out for some reason. They're 11 and 8, and they all had spooky music, and they were all and they were enthralled by this. And I thought that was pretty good. I mean, some of it, you could say was cheesy-ish, because you have this ship, but my kids, who are the ones who really need to watch this more than anyone else, they thought it was awesome, and they've been totally spooked by every space thing we've ever tried to watch.
Huh. What about you, Tom?
I am really glad it was as pretty as it was, because I think it's because I wanted to recapture that feeling of watching Cosmos with Carl Sagan when I was a kid, and everything blew my mind because it was all new. And when you watch it now as an adult, you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that is pretty impressive. There were a couple of times when it did move me, though. One minor time is when they gave the hat tip to Pluto. Because as they were going through the planets, I'm like, okay, how are they going to handle this, right? Because he says the final 2 planets, Uranus and Neptune. I'm like, uh-oh, ready for internet rage. And he's like, then there are the other bodies, including Pluto. And I'm not going to name any others. That's it. And it's like, that's actually a pretty elegant way of handling that. I liked that. It gave it, us old timers who grew up with Pluto being a planet, I think appreciated that. But the scale bit, when he did the calendar,
yes.
I actually started that feeling like, I don't know about this date thing. It seems confusing because now some jerk out there is going to go, that didn't happen on March 17th. They're going to miss the metaphor. But man, by the time he got to the end of the calendar and he's like, and all of human history has been in 14 seconds. You're just like, whoa, Okay, yeah, that one worked. That blew me away.
That was awesome. I completely agree with you. That was just amazing, and my kids were blown away. Is that true? Like we had to pause it. I'm like, yeah, that's true. You know, it he was very good with scale in general. Like I liked how they did your first address is Earth, your second is the solar system, how they kept, and you really made you feel incredibly small that way too. So in scale of size and in scale of time, it did a good job at connecting that.
All right, so I now know my role for the remainder of this discussion. Number one, once they finally got around to having a theme, I was thrilled, right? And understand, I am somebody who adored the original Cosmos, who my daughter wasn't in the room. She was at her grandparents' place, but I loved knowing that she was watching it with her grandparents. I cannot know what her experience was like, but I will interview her and get back to you guys on this. But there were things that were deeply annoying to me about the way this went. Number one, visually amazing. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is the heir apparent to that throne. I think that everything about this is correct. So understand that I am nothing less than thrilled that we are criticizing the minor disagreements we have with what is the most important appointment viewing, science-focused program in my children's lifetime. Understand, color all of this under, yes, these are exactly the discussions and arguments I want to have. Having said all that, I was not a fan of the wasted first 10 minutes where everything was like Twitter facts about space. Did you know that the moon has craters because there's no atmosphere? I was like, all right, it was very disjointed. And again, I understand they wanted to start off with a pop visually and get around to that. That's great, whatever. Finally, after the first commercial break with the integrated advertising, Samsung Galaxy, by the way, then they
which I missed out on that part of it by watching it online.
Right. They finally got to the actual theme of the episode, which is the scale of everything. And in that regard, I was glad to see them go somewhere with it. Unfortunately, part of that whole experience was not crazy about a third of the show being a cartoon melodrama. I did not like that
either.
Yeah, me too.
So here's the thing, and again, like and two faults, right? I'm gonna give it two dings. Number one, we're tuned in because the show's called Cosmos, not comic book melodrama time. That's fine, all right. Second of all, we tune in. And did they really need in episode 1 to essentially come out swinging, being like, the cosmos is awesome, science is rad? Aren't religious people jerks who burn scientists alive? What's up with that?
See, I didn't take it that way. I really didn't feel like it was an attack on religion, but maybe others did.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Is number one.
I thought it was very much like, over time, people have had controversial opinions, and this is what happens to them. And I don't know. I didn't even think of it that way. Maybe because I was so bored by the cartoon that I really wasn't paying that close attention.
Well, understand, first of all, you don't. None of this exists in a vacuum. We live in a world where Neil deGrasse Tyson and from what I understand, Seth MacFarlane, are outspoken pro-science atheists or whatever. That's fine, whatever. But and understand. The message that they actually said, the words they were saying were, this guy was rad because he believed in a God so freaking massively better than their dumber, smaller version of God that he could comprehend multiple planets and multiple stars and so on. So the objective stated thing was better. But at the end of the day, they definitely put a guy in a beard, burned alive. And then the last image they show is, hey, bro, here's a cross. Are you into it or not? And the guy goes, ew, crosses. Why don't you just burn me alive? And then they burn him alive.
Totally got that, Brian. I agree with you 100% on that one. I grew up in a family of ministers, so
yeah,
I was very sensitive to how this will go over the will we be discussing this at the Thanksgiving table? Because it definitely it hit me that way too, and maybe it's just a sensitivity thing on my part, but it definitely hit me that way.
Prof Pod in the chat says, don't forget the evil Pope in the cartoon, which, yes, there is definitely evil Pope showed up. Again, understand, we can all love science without needing to take a dump on anyone. And you could say that they weren't taking a dump. Maybe they weren't taking a dump on the institution of religion. They were definitely taking a dump on those people who burned that guy at the stake at that time. And to me, it just felt weird. Again, it's like that's not the art that I wanted to tune in.
Here's where I'm
for.
coming at it, Brian, and I'm not coming at it in the context of thinking about, oh, the atheists are getting their day on television, right? Which I think is what that is a context that a lot of people have, and that's what you're talking about. Is those folks on both sides coming at it with that
just to clarify, like my position is like I don't care one way or the other.
No,
my point is I
that
hate the distraction. I hate that this is even an issue that we're talking about right now.
It was the easy way out. To me.
What's that?
It was the easy way out.
But I would never have. I think that's the point for me, is that I wouldn't have had that conversation about this, not because I would have been avoiding it or anything. It just didn't strike me that way, because this felt like every explanation of, what happened with Galileo and Copernicus and everything in every school course that I had. Now, granted, there's an evil pope, and I don't remember an evil pope being in my school courses, but it was basically my upbringing in Catholic land was, the people who ran things were idiots back then, and they did these stupid things, but now we're smarter than that.
All right, so here's the thing. Again, nothing exists in a vacuum. There are two questions I have. Number one, does this conversation belong on Cosmos? And I think the answer is yes, it does. But the second thing, does this belong in the first episode of Cosmos? I would say there probably was something else you could have gone with in this segment instead of that.
I would have much rather had him talk more about his visit with Carl Sagan.
Yes. Okay. And let's talk about that.
That was a cool scene.
Yeah. Okay. And it was, and I don't understand why they didn't. Here's what I had hoped to see, and they almost did it. They did fetishize Carl Sagan, which I think he should be. He was an important part of all of our childhood. He was the astronomer poet, and if anything, watching Neil deGrasse Tyson do the show that he created made it so clear how hard it is to be Carl Sagan, right? Start off with that. Explain to us that Carl Sagan was this poet that made us all dream of bigger things and see the universe as it actually is, as a beautiful thing. And then explain how the mantle has been handed over or whatever. Like, how rad would it have been to have seen to have started off the show telling all my children who Carl Sagan was, explaining that there was a show called Cosmos, and then like a scene where Neil deGrasse Tyson steps into an old desiccated corpse of an old spaceship and freaking turns it back on and takes us on the next journey. I'm getting goosebumps even picturing that crap right now, right? It's like that would have been great, but I feel like they a little bit dropped the ball on it. It felt very much written by consensus. As Justin said, it felt like it was a planetarium show, not a poetry reading. And I wanted to see a poetry reading, not a planetarium show.
But the way they did that scene with him, when he had a backpack that looked like it had been his backpack for years, right? And he pulls out this thing, and he pulls out the book, and he says, "Signed it to me," and that really affected me. It was really thrown in at the last minute, kind of. But I would have liked to have seen other scientists and maybe how Carl Sagan affected them too. Just in like quick thing, like for example, I'm not a scientist, but I did put behind me my Astroscan, which is over here.
Yeah.
Which from Edmund Scientific, which was right around the corner from where I grew up. I mean, that's a telescope. I was a member of the South Jersey Astronomers Club. It was all from Cosmos, So yeah, I would have loved to have seen other scientists and how it affected them too.
I mean, I guess like I am in. I'm going to keep watching, and I'm going to watch it with my kids, and I hope my kids have a different experience from what I have. But in general, I think there was room for a better narrative than what I've seen. That, and again, this is all the strength of Carl Sagan, is that he was able to make you personify planets. You saw Io as this fiery demon who's schizophrenic and crazy and so on. And the idea that, his book, The Pale Blue Dot, is about the fact that he petitioned NASA to use government resources to waste the time of turning around Voyager to look back at the planet Earth just to take a photograph of it as an insignificant pale blue dot against a background of stars. He did these things because it mattered to him that you understand that every person who ever lived and died, every king who ever slaughtered a nation, every territory, every dispute, all took place on this insignificant piece of dust in the sky. That is beautiful. And to me, I thought this version of Cosmos lacked some of that vision.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the very last thing that you said. And I disagree with the idea that they would have benefited somehow by putting more Carl Sagan laudatory bits in.
Not more.
If they
just
did,
do it up front.
you would
Just do it
have-
up front is all I'm saying. Is 5 minutes. Old Pope is
5 minutes,
gone.
way
new Pope
too long.
is in.
5 minutes is an eternity on television.
All right.
They did introduce you to Carl Sagan and show you who he was and talk about him at the beginning. And at the end, they had a very touching and I would feel poetic tribute to him and his legacy with Neil Tyson directly. And I think if you go beyond that, people get bored who don't know Carl Sagan. And remember, this show is meant for people who aren't familiar with the original Cosmos. Would I like to have more Carl Sagan tribute? Absolutely. I am with you on that. I want to be moved more than I was. And if that's what this show was supposed to do, it failed. But I don't think that would have been a good idea for the broader audience. If you really want to get people interested in science, you don't sit there and talk about the guy who used to do this for a long time.
Yeah, but on the
other
flip
hand,
side,
you have to make that jump into saying, I'm going to at least equal or somehow channel the spirit of what Sagan was able to do with Pale Blue Dot and all of those famous explanations. Right. And I don't think they did this in this episode.
Yes. Okay. Right. And I was certainly what you don't do is list a bunch of science fact that you could have pinched from Bad Astronomer's Twitter feed, right?
Especially because if you listen to his podcast, he throws out some awesome facts that are just way beyond like learning. And
again,
simple,
I as somebody who just went through his first dance with television, television is made of compromise. It's made with it's made of everybody injecting, poking their fingers, telling you to go, no, say more of this, do less of that, or whatever. So it's like I can't even imagine the pressures that he's going through, and I don't want to in any way take away from the fact that at the end of the day, he pretty much blew my kid's mind with science stuff, and there's nothing but great about that. But I think that as a piece of art, I was definitely left a little bit wanting.
It's also really hard in perspective to now we've all seen so many things like this. When Cosmos came out, no one had seen anything like this. So this is totally different now. So to blow you away or in certain different ways, it's got to go a totally different way.
Yeah, and I don't think this show is for us, for the three of us.
Yeah,
at all.
I really think it's for kids.
And I don't think
honestly
Fox
do, which is
would have
another
approved
reason I
it for
didn't like
prime
the
time
cartoon.
if it was supposed to be.
Agreed. I'm sorry, Eklund, you were saying you think it was for kids?
I'm sorry I talked over you there. Which is another reason I didn't like the cartoon because it was just violent. And if it's for kids, that was a little bit much, I have to say.
That does sort of have like a mixed message. One of the dings that Lucas got was saying like, oh, don't worry about Star Wars, it's just for kids. And then he turns around and does, the third episode of Star Wars that starts with the beheading of a man.
Exactly.
It's like at the end of the day, I definitely gathered my 9 and 6-year-old in their grandparents' room and told them to watch the murder of a man where he was burned on fire, and that was not what I thought when I was. That's not what I thought Cosmos was about. I thought I was teaching him the story of the stars. Instead, it turns out I'm telling him that I don't know, the Inquisition was bad. So thanks. I guess
this isn't a Disney film. No mom has to die in this thing.
Yes, exactly.
Honestly,
no princesses.
It's funny, Brian. Like you and I are basically coming to the same conclusions from different routes.
Correct.
I also thought that there was way too much time spent on that cartoon, and I didn't think it was very well told. Not because it involved portraying religion in any particular way, but just because this is essential. If you're going to do an episode about the universe, which is a great one to start with, you have to tell about the Copernican revolution. I just thought this was a really bad way to tell about it.
Yeah, well, or certainly overly simplistic. You know what? Yeah. I'm not going to say it was a bad way. It's a way that's beneath them. They have the ability to tell it in a much more eloquent, elegant way, and they didn't. Instead, they made a melodrama. Priests be bad, scientists be rad, haters go to planet Pluto, whatever.
You know what it was for me? It was those reaction shots of the anime, it looks like they don't believe me. Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, so you want to move forward, and unfortunately, I feel bad that we can't quite give a full analysis of True Detective. Eklund, are you going to watch it? Do you worry about being spoiled here?
No, I don't worry about being spoiled. I'm not going to really. My wife's going to watch it, but I'm still got to catch up on so many other things. So
okay, Tom, I feel really guilty that I didn't watch more, but
I feel really embarrassed that I binged and watched it all. Like I should have better things to do with my life.
Well, we had, in fairness, we had originally talked about you coming here and us watching a few episodes together. But regardless, let me say this much. I did have the fascinating experience. And again, for those of you guys who haven't seen it yet, the first 3 episodes of True Detective are hypnotic in their dreamlike quality. They do an amazing job of setting up a haunting murder and the investigation, complete with the bureaucracy and everything that goes into it. And they inject the idea of a character who had previously been undercover for so many years that he occasionally gets these weird flashbacks, these hypnotic images that he sees from his previous drug days. All that told, it's still extraordinarily slow up until the 4th episode. And the 4th episode is like a freaking... It's another movie that just shows up out of nowhere. And it was amazing because I had watched the first 3 episodes. I brought Bonnie up to speed. We watched the previously on, and then we jumped in and started watching it. And what Bonnie saw was some kind of over-the-top, bigger than the Shield like movie experience where it's complete with a heist and double undercover and running over and rescue people and everyone shooting everyone in the face. And she's like, so is this what the whole show's like? And I'm like, no. So was that a moment for you, or you were already in by then?
It was interesting because my reaction to the first few episodes was not, oh, this is slow. My reaction was, I'm bathing in something awesome here.
Yeah,
I really was disappointed.
Keep in mind, I'm saying the word slow, but in my heart, I mean deliberate. And you know that I'm somebody who loves soaking in something outrageous, like the Dark Tower, we've talked about before.
Yeah, and I felt that way with True Detective. Like this is something just fantastic, and I love the atmosphere they're creating. I love the world that we're wandering around in. It's something that True Blood hints at because it's also set in Louisiana, and now looks like a paper cartoon next to True Detective as far as capturing the grit of that bio world. I was disappointed when they pulled back from the VHS look on the interviews and went to like the full HD resolution, because I'm like, I really like this idea of somehow I'm watching cinema verite. I'm like watching the actual tapes. But episode 4 blows all of those considerations away.
All of a sudden, you're engaged with the story.
It just restarts everything.
Yeah, like at that point, you're all of a sudden like, oh, I don't care. Why am I looking at the brass on the Titanic? The story is that it's going down or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, I wondered where we were going to go is the thing. And I'm trying to walk a line here because I know where we're going to go. But I remember feeling in episode 4, well, shit, man. Like now what do they do?
Okay, so answer me this. I know that there was HBO Go issues. Did you actually watch the last episode?
Yeah, I did. Watched it this morning.
Damn. All right. Sure. Then that's
the HBO Go issues were only last night. I couldn't help myself.
But the excuse is forever, Tom. The excuse of there being issues. So tell me this. I heard, and this is like double spoiler, not to anyone watching, it's double spoiler territory for me. I heard a number of people say they really didn't like how everything ended. Is there anything in particular I should be prepared for?
No, because this is not spoiler in time for episode last of True Detective. I will not fall for your trap. And incur the wrath of everyone who's like, well, you said it was through episode 4, and then you just went and talked about the last episode. I'm going to leave you entirely in ignorance. Jenny, my producer from Daily Tech News Show, huge True Detective fan, is yelling, the tracking shot.
That's what everybody in the chat room is shouting, tracking shot. I don't even know what that means.
In episode 4, there is, and I just learned this morning from my wife, there is a one-take shot through that narrative.
Yeah,
they're running around.
You're talking about, and this is fair game because we said we were going to spoil it. This is all of the getting from the escape and getting out of the shitstorm happening all around.
There are no edits in there. That was all shot in one take.
Okay, well, hold on. Now you're saying, I understand that is the effect that we saw, but I also understand that we live in an age where computers exist. Are you saying that it was definitely shot all in one take, or are you saying it was Children of Men style presented as one take? Because both are valid.
Shot. It
What?
was apparent. The fourth episode, as the one with the 6-minute tracking shot, logistically impressive. It's of a piece with True Detectives, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
I'm trying to find the confirmation here, but yeah, as I understand it, that was not clever editing. That was not CG. That was one actual tracking shot.
That's astonishing, and it's hard for me to believe. Wait, hold on. No, okay, if you have like a 4K thing on a steady cam and a dude following you.
I mean, people do one-take music videos all the time, right? And there's all those lip dubs and stuff like that. So it's not impossible, but wow. I mean, to me, it's less the technology of it as the logistics of just getting all the timing right.
Sure.
It's like a Rube Goldberg, like a big Rube Goldberg, essentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I definitely next week we'll definitely get on the same page. We'll talk about how we thought how everything ended up. God, there's so many questions I want to ask that it would be a really bad idea. One of the other things, I guess the only spoiler in time, if I was a better person, I would be talking to you real quickly about the DLC for the Last of Us video game. But it turns out Veronica Belmont and I did not have time to get through all of that. So we were going to play through that live on diamondclub.tv, but instead we ran, just was going to take like an hour to download. So instead we played Tokyo Jungle, which was dumb. But anyway, there's that.
What did you guys think of the end of Lego Movie, by the way? What did you think of the end of Lego Movie?
When you say the end, you mean like just the fact that it turned out to be,
Are we spoiling the Lego Movie?
Oh, sorry.
Give people a warning if we're going to spoil the Lego
I
movie,
apologize,
because we
sorry.
didn't tell them we were going to spoil the Lego movie.
Sorry, that's my bad.
To be
I'm
honest,
fine with spoiling the Lego movie. Let's just put it in the title of the episode.
So get ready for the Lego Movie spoiler. The whole third act revelation that I think my favorite thing about the revelation that they're in somebody's basement was the fact that, unlike a Pixar movie where it would have been this giant existential crisis about what does it mean to be a plaything of godchildren, instead, the fact they're like, whatever, look, the important thing is how do I do this? Like, I adored that aspect. And my kids seem to as well.
And what was also awesome was the fact that the whole beginning of the movie, is him. These are the things you do by the instruction book, right? And when your kids get these Lego things, like my son put together the Death Star, the Lego Death Star, 40 pages of instructions in 5 different books or whatever, and yet I thought it was awesome that Lego went against that. Says, you know what, we give you these instructions, but you don't. That's not the point.
Yeah, you know what? Look, at some point when the whole world refuses to use your dumb instructions, you start to realize, oh wait, maybe it's not about the instructions.
Right.
It's and Lego certainly has done that in their corporate culture.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I like that they balanced it too, and we talked about this when we had this on Spoilerin Time before. But it's not just a never follow the instructions or always follow the instructions. It's like, hey, there's value in following instructions sometimes, even if all it means is you learn how to riff and not follow the instructions. You shouldn't lock yourself in.
Well, there were really 3 or 4 big points of the movie. The first off, of course, is that everything is awesome. You learn that everything's cool when you're part of a team.
Sure.
Everything's better when you stick together, and something about a piece of string.
I thought it was a bean. Was it a bean?
Maybe. I don't know.
Exactly.
I think that's the I'm going to call that the Brushwood rule. When you just start quoting the cheesy song from Lego Movie, I think it's time to wrap up. It's Spoilerin Time.
There you go.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. It's Spoilerin Time. We are very thankful for our patrons who get this first, and everybody can enjoy it later. We'll see you next time.
Love you.